Hi, it's Christa Mackinnon again, and I wanted to share another tutorial with you, this time about the power of altered states of consciousness. So before we look at the power of altered states of consciousness, let's just quickly explore what are states of mind and altered states of mind. So a state of mind is your mental state at any particular point in time. So what you think, feel, perceive, and how you process this. Our normal state of mind is usually outwardly focused. So we do something, we watch something, we experience something which is influenced by the outside. So we're thinking, we are outwardly orientated, and we process input from the world around us. An altered state, sometimes also called non-ordinary state, is a state of mind that differs from the normal state of consciousness. It's really quite simple. Now, altered states are either natural states of mind or induced states, and they are seated on a continuum from mild to extreme. So we alter our state, for example, mildly if we have automatic reactions and actions, if we do something where we don't have to think, where we don't have to pay attention to what's going on outside, and we act and react automatically. For example, like when you drive a car from A to B and you don't quite know how you ended up there because you have driven it so many times that you can go into a daydream, or you think and you don't be aware of what's going on around you, but you are alert enough to instantly react if something happens which makes you aware of some danger or something. Now, being deeply absorbed into something generally, and especially into a creative task, gets you into an altered state, which is a bit further up the continuum. Daydreaming is another natural altered state. It's a deeper altered state because we are only aware that we daydreamed once we come out of the daydream, and we certainly have lost some time because we have been daydreaming and we haven't been aware of it. If you strongly visualize something, or as I have already said, if you are in a creative state, when you're absorbed in a creative task, produces a natural altered state. And then if you meditate, for example, so we're going up the continuum, and the deeper altered states are sometimes induced and sometimes not. A deep altered state, which we all have experienced, or most of us at one point in our life, is the hypnagogic and the hypnopompic state. So the hypnagogic is shortly before we fall asleep. Sometimes we twitch suddenly and realize, oh, we have been almost asleep. And the hypnopompic state, or the hypnagogic state, is when we go to sleep, and the hypnopompic state, from popping up basically, is shortly after we wake up, but we are not quite awake yet. Those two states are very creative states. I'll talk about that later on. Further up the continuum, or on similar levels, is, for example, deep shamanic journeying. And then we have the more extreme states, like lucid dreaming. So that's when we dream and we are aware of our dreaming whilst we sleep. And then we have, of course, extreme visionary states, shamanic death and rebirth experiences, and near-death experiences towards the high end of our continuum. Some of them are induced by entheogens, and some of them can happen naturally, but they are quite out of the ordinary. So we can measure states, and they can be firstly measured via EEGs. So that's the number of brainwave cycles, or the rhythmic pulses your brain produces per second, and they're measured in hertz. So beta is our normal waking states, where we process input from the environment, and we have a high frontal lobe activity. We are outwardly focused, The alpha state starts setting in when we begin to relax, when we meditate, when we have an intense focus. So we are inwardly focused. Then the deeper state is often called the theta, the twilight zone. That's the one I mentioned already before falling asleep, when we lucidly dream, when we intensely meditate, the hypnagogic and the hypnopompic state. So they are extremely creative states. And again, I will come back to those. And then going to delta, these are the near-death experiences, shamanic death and rebirth ritual, extreme visionary experiences such as dismemberment, and often, but not always, they are achieved with the help of psychoactive substances. So here you have a little image about the Hertz activity. As I said before, it's measured in brainwave activity in Hertz, how many rhythmic pulses run through the brain. So in our normal beta state, it's about 14 to 13. The alpha is then 9 to 13. The theta is 4 to 8, and the delta, our brain activity, is hardly there, is the most extreme altered state. But it is worth mentioning that those states are fluid, of course. So we can also measure them via FMRI scans. And FMRI scans show the neural activity in various areas of the brain. So they don't measure the pulses, they show the activity in different areas. So functioning magnetic resonance imaging, FMRI, measures brain activity by detecting changes associated with blood flow. Very simplified, the more blood flows in a brain region, the more neural activity we have. Now, in higher altered states, or in more intense altered states, we know that the boundaries between our brain regions dissolve. We also know through fMRI scans that there is a decreased activity in our default mode regions. These are the regions which hold us in fixed patterns of thinking, of acting, of reacting, of feeling. Most of you will know what decentering is. You get it when you meditate. So we can observe rather than identify with thoughts and feelings. Now, this one is an important one for creativity, while the one before, the decentering, is very important in the therapeutic sense. The increased activity in regions which are associated with imagery, memory, creativity, and also with the more transpersonal can be shown via fMRI scans when we are in altered state. And all of them, of course, or most of them, are characterized by a decrease in frontal lobe activity, so a decrease in thinking, analyzing, questioning, and so on. So let's come to the power of altered states now. So the physiological and mental benefits are that our nervous system calms down. So we switch from a sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic one. So our body is relaxing. And this leads also to mental relaxation. As I said before, the brain activity slows down. And with that, we get more mental clarity and focus. So these are the physiological and mental benefits. We can also utilize, of course, altered states for therapy and development. Remember I said before, we access imagery, memory, and with that we can easily access subconsciously held personal material when we are in altered states, and mainly in archetypal form, in imagery, transpersonal material. We can use altered states for programming therapeutic outcomes, goal setting, goal achieving, and so on, because we can, in a way, without a critical brain interfering too much, set up experiences which the brain takes as reality. And once I have done something, once my brain believes it's achievable, it will help me to achieve it again. And of course, we utilize altered states for development, for consciousness expansion. And in the extreme, we have transformational experiences like any near-death experiences or certain shamanic experiences, which will alter us. They are transformational and change our view of the world. Now, what might interest most of you most is, of course, what we can do in altered states creatively. Because altered states do enhance our creativity transformationally and substantially. I want to give you here just a few examples. Paul McCartney, who wrote the song Yesterday, one of the most played and one of the most sold songs, he said, I just woke up one morning and had this tune in my head. I had a piano next to my bed and started playing it. Remember I said before, the hypnagogic when we fall asleep and hypnopompic when we wake up are very, very creative states. Paul McCartney and many other musicians and creatives generally realized this. He had a piano next to his bed and started playing that tune, which came from somewhere in an altered state. And I will come back to that, because that he had a piano next to his bed is quite important, because once we go fully back into our fully waking beta state, we often lose the experiences, the visions, the tunes, the images we had in an altered state. Next one. Again, for creativity, the power of altered states, how powerful they are for creating and being creative. J.K. Rowling says, I was on the train to London and it just came. She says that about Harry Potter. As I came off the train, I went straight home and started writing. I heard a voice and I believed it. And I'm quite sure J.K. Rowling was daydreaming when she conceived Harry Potter. And she says later on, she conceived most of the characters already during that train ride. So it just came to her. And the last I want to mention is Oprah Winfrey. She says the secret is that you need to alter your thoughts and feelings. You need to dream your life into being. Again, she is a meditator, she is a visualizer, and she really knows how to dream consciously, how to put herself into that altered state where she gets her creative input and where she dreams her life into being. So, besides of the mental and physical benefits and the enhancement of our creativity, altered states are also important for invention and problem solving. And here I want to just let Albert Einstein speak. He says logic will get you from A to B, imagination will take you everywhere. As I said, our imagination, our imagery, our creative parts of the brain show enhanced activity when we are in altered states. He also says imagination is more important than knowledge. And the last one is quite interesting. No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. So we need to slip, we need to go into an altered state for problem solving, for solutions, the issues we have created, and there are many. So the vehicles, it's really anything that produces a trance state from the mild to the extreme, and it really depends what works for whom. So one needs to really find one's own way Of course, some of them produce stronger altered states than others, generally speaking, but you need to find your way. So the vehicles are daydreaming, meditating, listening to music, being in nature and being still in nature, creative tasks, so getting really focused on something creative, hypnotic inductions and hypnosis generally, like deep relaxation and so on. Creative visualizations, shamanic journeying, ceremonies, dancing, drumming, and there are quite a few more. And then, of course, entheogens, the psychoactive substances which alter our states profoundly. So why do I think we need to work with altered states, besides of that they're good for our mental and physical well-being, that they are good for our creativity, and that they enhance problem solving, and that we can use them therapeutically. The last point I want to mention, and I think that's my most important one, I think we need to work with altered states because we are imprisoned within a restricted consciousness. And as humans, our task is to evolve, so become more whole and create transformational change, especially in the world we live now. And to become whole and to create change and to evolve as humans, we need to expand our consciousness. We have restricted ourselves now extremely to an everyday waking consciousness. And we have undernourished the states of consciousness which are more beneficial for us. So we need to expand our consciousness, and we can do this by learning how to access the many altered states we can experience, the many realities we can experience when we are in an altered state of perception. And then we learn how to utilize the forces and experiences for change, for healing, for integration, for development and consciousness expansion. So I think each of us should spend some time each day in altered states. Our life changes, believe me. Now I'm in good company here. Eckhart Tolle says thinking and consciousness are not synonymous. Thinking is only a small aspect of consciousness. Thought cannot exist without consciousness, because consciousness does not need thought. Lao Tzu says the key to growth is the introduction of higher dimensions of consciousness into our awareness. So we need to alter our state. We need to become aware of those realities, of those higher dimensions. And then Terence McKenna, who advocated, of course, psychedelics for consciousness enhancement, says if the words life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness don't include the right to experiment with our own consciousness, so alter it basically, then the Declaration of Independence isn't worth the hemp it was written on. So coming back to it, I think if we want to become whole, if we want to expand, if we want to evolve, if we want to be more creative, if we want to experience the many layers of realities, we need to start inducing altered states into our lives, make the time for them, learn from them, and utilize them. So, start dreaming.